Cemeteries as healing landscapes. What are cemeteries? It is a place where remains of deceased peoples are buried or interred, and it not only plays a vital role in cities, but also it is a space for dead, but more for the living to remember them. And there has been a historical shift in cemeteries, the type of cemeteries over years, from churchyard to the recent lawn cemeteries. Similarly, there has been an evolution of headstones from the very bulky headstones with angels and cross and skulls over it to flat headstones flushed into lawns. The history of funeral customs and burial rites is faced by every culture and civilization. So there are many common threads in this funerary process, but with thousands of variations. The major difference that comes up is between cremation and burial. This is a cultural reflection diagram which shows beliefs of different cultures and which concludes that there are two efficient ways of doing it, that is eco-burial and columbarium walls. Death comes with grief, and grief process varies from person to person and has several stages like shock, awareness, withdrawal, acceptance, and again the desire to continue with life. But this may vary from person to person, and even the stages may vary. So the question is, how can cemeteries function as a place of healing in a multicultural framework? Cemetery holds a power like inducement to private meditation. The stone has a power to preserve memory, and the mix of customs and traditions of different cultures. Role of cemetery in healing. Therapeutic environment has only been used in connection with therapy with illness, but recently the concept has been broadened. This is Matthew Berry's thesis, which investigating that cemetery is a therapeutic environment, and his research recognizes three key attributes, that is the physical environment, the space and objects in surrounding, the administrative environments, that's the formal rules and regulations. Behavioral environment is the characteristics of people in grief. He found that cemetery created a therapeutic environment and identified several relevant therapeutic models of analysis. The first one is prosthetic model, which is the individual grave or memorial which acts as a prosthetic device. Normalization model, the natural landscape of the cemetery and the normalized therapeutic environment. Enhancement model, wherein we people make it more attractive and beautiful and provide hope and rejuvenation. Case studies, the first one is Avonhead Park Cemetery. It was intended to be a park setting, but the traditional forms of death were put aside and there were no landscape features. So people didn't quite like that thing, and so there was, after a few years, there were reappearance of headstones in the cemeteries. The Woodland Cemetery, it's a perfect blend of natural landform and architectural features. It is a cemetery full of feelings of landscapes. It establishes a contact between inner and outer landscapes. The third one is Igulada Cemetery. It is a link between past, present and future, and it's not just a cemetery. It is designed in a way which is responsive to landscape, and the densely planted trees remind the bereaved of life and renewal. And the journey, there's a journey within the whole cemetery, slow progression and spaces relating to time and memory, and it contributes to the urban green space network. So the overall summary from the case studies is that to provide a healing environment, a kind of journey, views and the topography, the materials, nature, vegetation, everything together can provide a healing environment. Urbanization. In today's urbanized world, land shortage has pushed cemeteries out of cities, and there is no place for cemeteries in the urban context. So this has resulted in popularity of cremation over burial, and such places should be given utmost importance in planning of cities. This is a general Auckland demographics, wherein majority are Europeans followed by Asians and the rest. Land shortage is a major problem. So accommodating the dead is an important component of planning which is required for Auckland's growth. As Auckland is a developing city and it's facing a change in ethnic diversity, and as per New Zealand statistics, 8,000 people die every year, and there are only 52 cemeteries in Auckland, out of which only 27 are currently active for burial, and new cemeteries are clearly required within 4 years. These are cemetery locations in Auckland. The orange ones are which are the ones accepting burial, and the rest is are the ones which are not accepting burial, and that's Waikamete Cemetery, and that's North Shore Memorial, and that's Manukau Memorial Park. Waikamete Cemetery. It is located in Glen Eden area of Waitakere City. And it covers an area of approximately 108 hectares, and it is the second largest in the southern hemisphere. Of which 62 hectares is existing graves and infrastructure, and 43 hectares is scrub and protected vegetation, and 2.8 hectares is available for future interments. It is one of the largest area of public open space within this urban area, and it is increasingly becoming popular for passive and recreational activities. These are the services which Waikamete is currently providing, of which eco burials are not yet that famous with people. This is a map of Waikamete Cemetery which shows that till now it is been the plots are being allotted as per different cultures, like areas are reserved for different cultures. The natural areas of Waikamati Cemetery. The natural areas are a mix of vegetation and mix of native bush and exotic weeds. It is a very ecologically significant scrub, but then it's getting degraded due to weed invasion and canopy growth. Those are the natural areas of vegetation. These are some of the native plants at Waikamati. Dracophyllum, Kanuka, Manuka, and some of the weed species. And some of the historic trees like oaks and pines and Sydney blue gum. Some of the historic buildings which are present at the cemetery. The cemetery has a cultural significance as it caters to the diverse New Zealand communities, and it is a category. It has a category 1 listing in cultural heritage inventory, and it has a significant wildflower collection. So the key issues at the cemetery are the burial methods, the traditional methods which use more of land. So alternative land efficient burial methods should be introduced. And recreation and community use, it is getting popular for recreational activities, but there has to be walkways and cycleways created for that, and it must be it should provide access to general public, because eventually it is destined to become a memorial park. Another issue is the heritage areas, which has a significant historical value, but it's got a little bit of neglected character due to overgrown vegetation and weeds. So maybe infill into these areas could be an option. And need for stormwater management. This will slow down the runoff and reduce erosion, and it will enhance the stream habitat. And that's the northern scrub and the southern scrub, which is home to threatened species of native lizards and plants. So the project goals are to provide a solution for problem of land shortage, to create a healing environment for the bereaved, and eventually adding to the green space network, creating a recreational space, and healing the ecology of land. That's site analysis, site zoning, which shows existing burials, that's old Victorian area, and existing, that's ash lawns, and that's existing cremation lawns. The natural features, that's the whole hillside vegetation with a little bit of ecologically protected area, the same on this side, and those are the riparian margins flowing through the site. A few plant species. and man-made features like the new crematorium, chapel, and there's this water tank which is existing on site. And there's this old chapel of faith in the Oaks. The microclimate and views, that's the area where you get, that's Waitakere view, the whole of Waitakere is seen. So I have selected 3 test sites, of which I am developing 1. So test site 1 is the southern scrub, and 2 is the northern scrub, and the third one is the Victorian areas. So how do we connect human and landscape and provide them a healing environment? So how do we connect their culture and emotions with landscape? So the natural landscape, like the existing ecology, vegetation, landform views, that itself does provide a healing environment, but cultural landscape, like people have changed it, and the journey and color and sound and water, the sound created by water will provide a kind of healing effect. The light and darkness will, all of this, like journey, color, sound, water, will eventually provide a healing environment for the people, and that will happen over a time. So that's test site 1. Those are just conceptual diagrams, wherein utilizing the central area, which provides a view, and making people go through a journey in landscape, and those are the pathways, and along the pathways there would be eco burials and pot burials, and a conceptual section. And the site is prone to fire disturbance. So if fire disturbance occurs, but it regenerates on its own, it has the capacity to do that over time. So utilizing this, so if fire occurs, so and if everything is gone to ashes, so you can reutilize this area and provide more burials in future. That was test site 2, which was in the northern scrub. And sections. Yeah, okay. And that's the third one, the Victorian areas, wherein we were proposed. There are many plots which are not being used, so providing burials there, but not using fancy headstones, and just using a simple marker. Yeah. Yeah, so moving on to test site 1. The attempt is to design an environment full of feelings which leaves the bereaved rejuvenated. And firstly, the bereaved enters into a dark space in a state of shock, which makes him aware of the loss, and when he comes out of that dark space, he feels kind of a withdrawal from the society, and further into moving into this central area, the sound of water makes the bereaved peaceful and recall memories, and then the view in front of him makes him maximizes his sense of independence and freedom, and this makes the bereaved slowly accept the loss of their loved one. And walking down these ramps further down, in between there are this spaces which are planted and which are paved, and this spaces provides a kind of memorialization thing, so that the bereaved can sit there, take his own time and think, and which this whole journey inculcates a sense of belonging and makes one aware of nature, place and time. And finally, there's this dark tunnel which goes underneath the railway. So finally moving out from that dark tunnel, moving out into the park which adjoins the site, leaves the bereaved with a desire to live. And the plantings like Puriri and Dracophyllum and are selected so that they attract birds, and that creates a natural kind of a sound, the water and the birds. And the burials will happen alongside this alongside that central area, and only eco burials and only eco burials and pot burials will be will take place in this new area, and there won't be any artificial materials or any materials that won't decompose. Those materials won't be allowed, and even if somebody wants to put a personalized marker, it can be in any simple small form, a natural form. And eventually this will turn out into becoming a forest, and which will become diverse over time if there are no fires. And should I put it? And there are this swales in between, which will help hold on the water, and there won't be any surface runoff. And underneath this dark room, there, as you can see in the section, there is a water tank. The water will be collected, and it will be reused into this the water body which is there, the pond. And these are the walls alongside, and those will be green walls, and that's a section for it. It will have niches for the urns, and there'll be planters in between, making it into a green wall. And overall, this will help reduce the problem of land shortage, and this is the only cemetery which is central, and most of the people prefer Vaikamati cemetery, and it will also create a healing environment, and eventually the quality of the scrub land would be maintained by doing this. There won't be any weeds, and and it will be a place to memorialize, and eventually along with healing the bereaved, it will also heal the environment, the nature, heal the land. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
So how many burials could this accommodate? Do you know, or is it?
This row of burials, if you consider this length,
Yeah.
it accommodates approximately 130 burials.
Is this like medium density housing?
Yeah.
Is it like an apartment typology, or are you still in suburbia, or?
Yeah. How does it compare to the rest of the density of the cemetery?
Because the space required for a eco burial is much lesser than the normal traditional burial, wherein you have to dig 6 feet down and have a big square. And it's like this for eco burials, you don't have to dig 6 feet, it's just a meter down the soil. And for pod burials, if you go for the pod burials, it requires just a meter of a dia.
I think that probably the question is a kind of a key part of the question and a key part of the kind of design outcome. So it'd be good to kind of know where this sits on the spectrum in terms of the number of, it's not dwellings per hectare, number of
Bodies.
bodies per hectare. Because if it's one of the key outcomes, it'd be good to know if we're looking at twice as much as what's currently provided at Waikimete, or whether it's enough to get us through to 2060 or something.
Yeah.
People love numbers.
Just as a quick explanation, so that those are paths, which kind of follow the contours, don't they?
Yeah.
So that along that path there might be many plots, eco plots.
Yeah.
And so the visitor comes down the middle, knows which path to go along to find their family, and you peel off, don't you? And you go, okay, good.
Yeah.
Could you just explain why you picked this section of the park? Because I noticed there was another bit that was a little bit vacant just further north. Like, is it right or am I wrong?
That's the northern scrub. Even that's a scrub land.
Okay, so what made you choose this section of scrub as opposed to the other section?
Because the landform and the view that it provides.
Okay,
good answer.
Yep.
And what happened to the scrub? Because I know this site quite well.
Because the species that we are using, like every burial will have a tree planted.
Yeah.
So the species that we are using is the native plants, which the scrub already has. So it's like you're redoing the scrub thing, but that will help you avoid the weeds.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of keen to understand, is this a kind of restoration project, or is this a recreation project in terms of because there's a lot of kind of ecological value in that scrub. Who would know? Who would have thought? But yes, I'm just keen to understand how we end up with all this infrastructure here, whilst acknowledging or protecting those ecological values. Because we've got kind of so I kind of look at the cross section. I see footpaths and a whole bunch of trees and infrastructure and stuff. So I'm just wondering how those two things come together.
So because that's the development project at Waikimete, it has ideas in mind of further developing into this scrub area. So if you have to provide, if you have to move further into this scrub area, you have to provide proper pathways and stuff like that. You cannot avoid them. But there has to be a balance of.
Yeah. So it's about the impact of those works, isn't it?
Yeah.
if you're kind of working within that ecological zone, how the stuff that you've proposed
Yeah.
kind of treat as lightly-ish.
Yeah, that's all Manuka.
Yeah. Love.
This is this area and the other one, the slightly northern one. Are they earmarked for expansion of the cemetery, or was it wasteland, or is it scrub land which has been put aside just to be scrub land, or?
Yeah, it is scrubland, but
Yeah.
it is a part of the cemetery.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So further growth,
Yeah.
which is like foreseen, is into this areas.
right. Because there was something in the papers just a few weeks ago about how we're running out, seriously running
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
But you seem to be saying that there's quite a lot of space at Waikomete. Is that right, or am I misunderstanding that?
No, there is it's the scrub.
Yeah.
So right now it's not been added to those hectares of future interments, but like we had a talk with the cemetery manager, and so that is where the further thing is going, that how do you utilize this scrub area and convert it into like make it a part of the cemetery.
Yeah. So the good scrub is the Manuka.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, you're going to take the weed out, which is fair enough. But the good scrub is going to be regenerated or replanted. And,
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. But as Orson says, that also entails a lot of heavy machinery and which is understandable.
Movement of
Movement,
the existing
yeah.
ecology, isn't
Yeah.
it? You're
You
doing
gotta-
something with it.
Yeah, that's right. You
Yeah.
can push it around,
Yeah.
build this, and then hopefully that does some good.
Just on that note about just these questions about the site, you might have touched on, I'm sorry, I've got a memory like a sieve, but maybe just presenting some of the kind of issues of the cemetery or what's its future, like what's planned for it, just to get some of these numbers kind of coming to the surface, and perhaps giving a bit more rationale as to why you picked that site, and the numbers that you can put in it would be quite helpful to kind of bring to the forefront of what you're presenting.
Okay.
And I think you started off quite focused on the cultural elements of death and burial. But from what I get now, that's kind of, from looking at these, that seems to have fallen away a little bit, and you've got more of an ecological focus coming through. So I was just wondering if you could maybe talk through or explain a little bit more some of the different cultural elements you're pulling in from different religions and different cultures into the cemetery.
Okay.
So how are you moving beyond the kind of Christian heritage that already exists in that Victorian section, and to doing something a bit more contemporary that reflects Greater Auckland?
And then do those things kind of inform the way you've designed it or drawn it? That would be quite a useful way of, in terms of your summary for your project, that would be quite important.
Yeah.
I'd be wanting to say something about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that seems to be an initial, like that seems to be kind of one of your problems that you're trying to deal with through this research, is like we've got a Christian heritage in Auckland, and most of our cemeteries reflect that, and yet we've got an increasing immigration population, and our cemeteries aren't reflecting different religious beliefs and different processes and different ways of grieving and mourning someone. So, but I mean, I'd love to hear about it. So if you've got some things you want to add to.
we did have a cultural background, like study, but then eventually it depends on person to person how they take it. So you cannot cater like to every single culture or every single individual. So it's like the human culture, it's like so the common things that every culture has is some significance to water and plantings and things like that. So using those natural kind of things and making it into a thing, a place which caters to all the cultures.
Cool. Well, that's really good
that's
to hear.
right,
That's
so-
exactly what we needed to see. Because you did a little bit of a study on
Yeah.
the headstones and that Christian Victorian kind of background of stuff, and then you said there's a few similarities. You did a little table, I recall.
Yeah.
But making that bigger and making that clearer, and also reviewing what the other religious processes are, and then you come out with those commonalities, which you just talked about as those natural Mother Earth things. That's what I think needs to be pulled forward
Okay.
in this. Yeah.
So those are things like the plantings and the water that you talked
Yeah.
about.
So the things that are already existing in nature and
and
so
the
they're
light,
already-
the darkness,
the
and
dark
the
and
light.
the- they're
those
already
are-
there.
Yeah.
What about the shapes and things though then? The things that end up on paper, the kind of, they're all the other things like the plantings and so on, they're part of the design, but I'm interested also in how you come up with things on paper, how that manifests, all that thinking, there's common things to various cultures manifests itself in these shapes on the drawing is sort of interesting. You don't have to say now, but it might be something that you talk about in the report for your final. This is your final presentation, but no, it's not. Practice presentation. I think it would be important to. I'm interested because I sort of work in architecture. I love to hear about how people draw things, how it comes out of on paper.
Yeah.
What is it that's going on? I mean, not everyone needs to know about this stuff, but we as designers are fascinated by each other's ways of working, and if you're presenting to us, you kind of need to address that a little bit. Some of it might be secret. That's fine, but you know what I mean. Otherwise, we kind of it's just what we're interested in.
I think the other thing that would make it more useful for the people that you're presenting to is just to have a look at the balance that you've got at the moment between the kind of the front end of your presentation, which is the kind of why you're doing it, how you're doing it, all that kind of stuff, which is already useful, and the back end of it, which ended up kind of a little bit rushed.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of left us wanting a little bit because we see fantastic drawings on the wall, but we want to kind of figure out what's going on, and so I don't think you kind of did your work justice, effectively just by not having enough time to present it. So I tend to go through that front end and figure out what the because you've done a huge amount of work, that's great, but you've only got a limited amount of time to kind of get your key messages across. So I'd go through that front end and identify what the key bits are.
Okay.
And then the other thing I think you mentioned is like effectively kind of drawing out those kind of references or connections between the stuff at the front end and the stuff that's being delivered here as well.
Critical.
Because you used, my Swedish pronunciation is not good, but Skolgården in Sweden, the woodland cemetery, I should probably just said that, which is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful cemetery that completely that's the same ilk as this, where it's about man and nature, and man almost being subordinate to nature, because when you go there you're completely overwhelmed by the forest and the natural side of that cemetery. And I think in the precedents you gave, you kind of talked a little bit more about their history and kind of, I think you could have maybe drawn out some of the design elements of why they worked the way they did.
Okay.
Because that's where Woodland Cemetery is amazing, because it's picked up on some of that Victorian rectilinear kind of spatial layout of very long boulevards and then trees and then a cemetery. I mean,
Not only
thingy-mabob at the end, crematorium.
Not
Anyway,
only-
and then have you used that in your exam, in your work or something. So again, just pulling out that design stuff and that drawn designy aspect. I think
That's
really
the key,
good.
the drawing, because Aspund actually did these amazing drawings, these beautiful pencil drawings, and we're not analysing them but looking at those might give you a whole lot of clues as well about what's going on at that place.
So the thing that the kind of the big So the kind of the plans and the sections are giving us a really good understanding about how the site works in 3 dimensions, but one of the keys to your project in terms of how it delivers on that grieving process is that kind of a procession from the top of the site to the bottom of the site. So that actually might be a different kind of way of, and so you're able to just describe that. I'm suggesting there might be some kind of images that might help describe how that big set piece works, you know, kind of down into the tunnel, over the water, darkness, the reveal, the water, the view, all that kind of stuff.
And is that what you started with, that perspective down the bottom there?
That's like how eventually it will look like.
Yeah. A bit more of that would be good.
Yeah.
Particularly if this is a procession, so you're going through something and you're working towards something at the end. My only other kind of, well, actually I've got 2 little comments. Firstly, it's really subjective, so you can take it or leave this advice, but you've got a really lovely hand, and I noticed your writing is beautiful. It's quite perfect. I actually thought it was printed, like on a computer. So it goes from this beautiful, delicate, quite feminine kind of drawing over here to really chunky, which is great because you can read it and I can sit here and it's awesome, the scale of it. But I'm just wondering if you might want to maybe take some of that lovely hand-drawn, delicate line and bring that into these lovely big cross-sections and these plans. Just an idea. Again, you can take or leave it.
Kormal says it was all done on a computer.
No, that's okay. I don't mind doing it by hand.
I mean, it's totally a suggestion because I mean it still reads fine. I'm just putting it out there. And also just in terms of what you have pinned up, there is a bit of a gap between over there and over there. So if some of that stuff that you put in the PowerPoint could be inserted into that little gap, would be quite helpful just to read. Just in terms of presentation stuff. And then my other thing was the train station and the train line at the bottom.
The tunnel.
Oh, actually no, and there was one thing about context. So how do people actually get into and out of the park, and have you kind of increased the permeability of the edge of the park? Like, how do you get to Singer Park? I presume you just keep walking. Maybe just a little...
Under the... Oh, you go under
just
the
a few
railway.
other little kind of contextual arrows or something like that might be quite helpful, just to kind of place it in its context a bit more.
Well done.
Ah, ta-da, there we go, perfect.
Can't see it,
No, I can't see that one.
No?
Redraw it like
I mean, that's easily resolved with a couple of diagrams.
So
We'll just add into that.
it's coming into the site from here and going down these ramps, and then getting you can these are the ramps which go down.
Yeah. So I get that bit.
and the transport.
But just a bit of the blobology, the big fat arrows and the blobs of where you're going and how you're getting there can kind of help as to where it fits.
Okay.
That's an easy fix, and you've probably already done it. It's more just about seeing.
Enter into this part.
Well,
just one of the...
in any part.
I might have done some work out there. So one of the big things that comes up in Glen Eden is that the train line... Well, I mean, Glen Eden was effectively established around around Waikumete.
Right,
Waikumete, it's a kind of a cemetery town.
Yeah.
But, and everybody used to come out by rail.
Yeah.
But it's actually formed a kind of a natural barrier between the town centre and the cemetery. So being able to express, because I'm a bit lost, but where the station is in the town centre, and maybe how they could stitch those two things together would be.
Because you have talked about it having a park value, like it's more than just a cemetery, and it's had a history of being more than a cemetery. So fitting that into the bigger picture, or at least just the local picture, would be quite helpful to communicate.
Maybe what you do then is that top plan, which gives too much space to the other part of the older part of the cemetery, should be pushed northward so that you see more of the township. I don't know. I mean, or it could be just another drawing which shows the relationship. Because I'm sure it's important, all that stuff up the top there, but maybe, and so it needs to be there, but maybe that's why you have to do another diagram to show this other relationship. Okay.
And does it, and with where you've got it now, do you think it meets those 5 objectives that you had on your PowerPoint
The goals?
presentation?
The project goals?
That's it,
Yeah.
goals, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Yep.
Most of it is catered.
Cool. Because that might be another nice way to kind of wrap it up.
Hmm.
So that was what you were kind of intending on, and that's what you've ended up with. Doesn't meet it, or does it even go into something else that's bigger and better and
Yeah.
unexpected? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, see, yes, exactly, yeah.
He doesn't have a chance to say
I think
anything.
just to pick up of something that was mentioned before, of that big chunk that you have in the beginning of all the research that you did, and I think you mentioned Matthew Perry,
Yeah.
and the elements that we have. So I think it's how do you make the connection of that in your design? For me, it's a little bit, maybe it's there on your text or something, but it's kind of how that informs your design. It's something that you were mentioned before, from ideas to design. Say so you take some of these elements, I don't know, 3 or 4 elements that we mentioned there, and using that, how do you analyze your precedents in base of that element? Because you are using that,
Yeah.
so you have to use it.
Yeah.
So how do you analyze your precedents, and how that together of analyze your precedents can inform your design? And maybe you say, well, it's missing some elements here that I have, so that's part of your contribution also. But, well, it's missing something here that he doesn't mention, the others, no one is having mentioned this, I'm seeing this happening on these other precedents. So then you go, and maybe it's part of your goals. It's kind of your goals come from that. So I think it's to make clear that why are you having that big chunk of information in the beginning? Because it looks like that it's that, and then your design. Making that connection is very important. Another thing is kind of, you talk about the tunnel, or this dark tunnel, very interesting. Where is it? I want to see an image of that. I want to see a perspective of that. I want to see, to be inside of that space, looking of that redemption in the end, that light coming. So you have to really show that.
Okay.
3D. You have to have a model for the final presentation.
Yeah.
You have to, because
I like that, yeah.
because we talk about the plans, we talk about the sections. It's kind of, well, and here's a wall, and here's the tunnel, and here's a show a perspective, aerial, and a model. Or one or the other. I think a model would be fantastic.
One of those models that you look through. You know?
Exactly. People can go there and can see, and people will understand. So I agree 100%. You have amazing drawings, and for me, these ones here are very boring. Very the sky there in the end. You can do much better than that. You can sell these drawings much better than that. Now, the scale also, be careful, because you are showing on that scale there, and then you jump to that one, and then suddenly you kind of, where exactly is that piece there that you are doing your design coming from? And the same thing, explaining your shape, where your shapes are coming from, what was the process of coming to these shapes. And just to finish, I used to live on that road there, on the Glenview Road.
Yeah.
The first place that I rented here in Auckland. It was amazing. It was a Pete Bosley house. Yeah, you remember? And I used to run on this cemetery. It's an amazing. It's something kind of unique, because in a lot of places, cemeteries are very closed, and you have a gate, and sometimes they even are closed.
Yeah.
But this place were open.
Yeah.
24 hours.
Doesn't have gates.
Wild as well.
In wild, amazing. It's a park. I never had any problem to be running there, and I saw there people running with the baby trolley and everything. So it's a park. It's an amazing place. So well done to work on this site.
Okay, thanks very much.